But as I'm entering into 2020, the word that I've chosen for myself that I think is going to help me over the next 10 years to continue to grow into the person that God created me to be, so that I can give my unique talents and gifts to the world. And by the way, that's what I'm hoping, if you're watching this video, that's what you're interested in doing too. Becoming fully yourself for the sake of the glory of God, so that you can share your gifts and talents and become an ambassador of God's abundance to every single person you meet each day. And I think one of the critical virtues, if you want to call it that, or traits that we need to cultivate to move forward is going to be curiosity. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I used to hear the phrase, curiosity killed the cat, as though being curious was a bad thing. Even one of my pastors, who was formative in my life, and in fact I was called into ministry under his ministry, used to tell me, Brian, don't ask questions, just believe. You know, and that kind of a fixed mindset to faith and life works great until it doesn't, right? And I want to suggest that instead we want to embrace St. Anselm's faith-seeking understanding, or we can think of the person in Jesus' ministry who said to him, I believe, Lord, help me with my unbelief, and embrace what I think I would call a holy curiosity. And what I mean by that is when you become curious about the whole world, we stop simply making judgments about everything we encounter through our old filters. And we begin then to listen, read, engage the world with the idea that, you know what, there's something here that I need to learn. So we stop listening just for agreement. I mean, how many of us spend most of our lives only listening to others to the extent that they agree with us, and then only speaking to others to help them learn that they need to agree and align with our thoughts and thinking? Imagine that your life is really just an unfolding adventure. Yeah, do we have things that we put our feet on solidly? Absolutely, right? We have scripture, we have a tradition that can guide us, we have theological statements that give us really broad categories for living our lives. But for the rest, let us be curious and make sure that we're getting the full picture and spectrum about the world around us. You know, Lord knows in 2020 that our culture needs persons who aren't simply working out of a fixed mindset, that can listen to someone else, that the other, and actually not see a threat or hear a threat or simply make a judgment, but be open. Imagine how, even if you bring it into inside of your own home, how would your marriage be different? How would the way your relationship with your children, especially as your children get older, be different if you didn't simply listen for agreement, but you became really curious? So here's what I'm trying to do in 2020. Every time I get a sense that I'm feeling threatened by an idea or a person's position, or even by something that I see on the news or something that I encounter at work, I'm fighting really hard not to make a snap judgment out of my own fixed mindsets. I'm trying to be curious about all those things. And the question that I'm going to use this year to help me embrace curiosity is simply this one. It's really simple. It's going to be this. Every time I feel like I'm judging, I want to say, isn't that interesting? And I mean that in two ways. Isn't it interesting how quickly I'm rushing to judgment on something and then trying to, to fit the proverbial square peg into a round hole into my own framework. So isn't it interesting how quick I make judgments? But also, isn't it interesting what I'm encountering? And what can I learn here? What can I learn here? Because, Dan Sullivan has a saying something like this. He says, winning isn't always learning, but learning is always winning. And what he means by that is many of us just live really unreflected lives. We don't have lives of curiosity. And so when everything's going great, we just assume the status quo is going to go on, especially if it favors us. So you can win without growing or without learning. You simply have to be in the right place at the right time. So sometimes we're unreflected in that. And so what Sullivan says with that is winning isn't always learning, but all learning is always winning. Is what he's getting at is that the key to winning is to commit not to being fixed, but to being curious and grow. And as long as you're growing, whether it's from something that goes really well where you feel like you're winning, or what happens at least probably half the time when things don't go the way that we want them to go, whether it's some kind of a challenge that we face, a failure, a loss, a mistake. Even if we're talking religious terms, even if like a sin, we fall into a sin. What can we learn? And as long as you're learning, that sets you up for growth. And when you're growing, you're winning. So in 2020, let's embrace curiosity. Isn't this world endlessly interesting? Isn't the way that I react to it interesting? If you'd like to talk more, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Thanks for going on a walk with me this morning. I'm Brian Russell from Deep Dive Spirituality. I wish you a wonderful day.